is us starting again.
We are back.
Yes, it's just picking right. We're paused it and started right again.
Well, we don't want to lose the rhythm of
That's
it
true,
all
I know,
or
because I
anything.
had to slow you down because you kept going. Well, welcome, yes, to Adventures in Torah. We are in the last parashot of Breshit, which is...
Genesis.
Yes.
The beginning.
Vayechi is our portion that we're in right now. And this is the last one because now we're going to move into Shemot, which is Exodus. Yeah. That'll be the next one there. But we're finishing up Genesis. We're finishing up the beginning.
So,
how about that?
Just to summarize this book of election, all right, which is what it is, but it begins with let there be light, basically. In the beginning was the Word. Or all that. I jumped to John.
Well, I jumped all the way to John there. Bereshit bara Elohim et
Yeah.
haaretz. Yes. So we have the beginning. We have the whole description of all creation coming into existence, of light, of everything all happening, etc. But then we have
the creation.
All the things that transpire there. We have Noah, everything that occurs there. I mean, we have just the fall. Before that, obviously, of things. And but now we've been introduced to this whole family of a gentleman by the name of Abram. He becomes Abraham. And he has this family begins because of a promise that he believes through Yitzhak.
And then the book closes with a casket.
Yes.
Actually, two. The Father and the Son.
Interestingly.
Huh?
Yeah, they actually both do. But we're now finishing up, though, with the conclusion part of Jacob's life and the sons of Jacob, otherwise known as the children of Israel. All his sons here. Okay, so this is Vayechi, which is, remember, was it me?
Yeah. And he lived.
He lived.
He drew near, and he lived. Which is the only way you can live, is by drawing near.
Yes. It's my turn to open up here, I think. Father, we do thank you for an opportunity again to draw into your word, draw into your Torah, and learn of you. And we just thank you for your presence with us to continue this conversation and learning of you, your ways, your instruction to us, and how to walk this life. We thank you for the avot, the fathers of the faith here. Let us learn from them. In your blessed name, Yeshua. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, so in Vayechi here, we're in Genesis 47:28 to 50:26, which concludes Genesis. Yeah? And the reference in Hathra is 1 Kings 2, and then John 13 is our gospel portions, which would be great someday to be able to get to those.
We're going to. Next year. We got
to touch on the Haftarah portions because those are very, very rich. So, but in 48 here, now, we left off with Joseph revealing himself. Finally.
Yes.
Reveals himself, whatever, and then the inspiration to the brothers giving instructions to go back and let them know that he's alive.
Yeah. Amen, brother.
Yeah. And the evangelism started right there. But they're bringing then Jacob at the behest of Joseph and also the welcoming of Pharaoh, saying, come, we want to take care of you. There's going to be 5 more years of famine and just a mess out there, but we're going to give you the best of the land. So he's bringing the whole family over. Oh, it is. It is. So they bring them over, right? And they list out in the previous portion the family, and list all some of the sons, the kids. So it lists out everybody that's coming over, right? And we get ultimately, we're trying to get over here to 48, but there was there was something I wanted to make reference to in there, and it's fleeting me. I'm sorry. So I'm just going to have to hop over. But
it's going to come back to you.
It will. But in leading to in chapter 48, we're drawing nigh of Jacob's life, right? Now it came about after these things that Joseph was told, behold, your father is sick. Mm-hmm. So he took his 2 sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, right? Manasseh and Ephraim with him. Now, interesting, who are these two kids here?
They are mixed. They are mixed, half Jew, half Gentile.
Yeah, they are.
Technically,
they would really be considered more Gentile because of the mother.
That's right. That's right, because they are descendants of a Gentile bride.
Yeah. That's an interesting representation here. Now, the firstborn's named Manasseh, and he is, it was, I believe, forgetful, or forget.
Let me forget.
Yes, let me forget, and basically, let me forget my troubles, my pain, my sorrow, and things that he had been through. And Ephraim is basically fruitful.
Yes.
Because the word within there, the spelling on there, the letters of pri is a fruit. And,
Joseph even makes reference to the aspect of plenty in that regard.
So when it's told to Jacob, behold, your son Joseph has come to you, Israel collected his strength, and he sat up in bed. Then Jacob said to Joseph, God Almighty appeared to me at Luz in the land of Canaan and blessed me. And he said to me, behold, I will make you fruitful and numerous, and I will make you a company of peoples, and will give this land to your descendants after you for
peoples plural.
For an everlasting possession. And now your two sons who were born to you in the land of Egypt before I came to you in Egypt are mine.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, this is fascinating here. If something is transpiring here, there's this practical adoption happening here. Ephraim and Manasseh. Now listen, he uses Ephraim first.
Yes, he does.
Immediately. He's already started the communication. Ephraim and Manasseh, even though Manasseh was born first, shall be mine. And look what he says, though, as Reuben and Simeon are. Something real interesting with that phrase is happening here. Because, look, you have Ephraim and Manasseh happening here. It's almost, remember who literally laid down their leadership?
Yes, they did.
They did. They laid it down.
They forfeited.
They forfeited on there. Yet these grandsons are literally being brought into an equation equal to, if not over.
Interesting.
Don't you think? I mean, that's the way it kind of looks like to me here.
So perceiving this is that they are being elevated above
Reuben and Simeon.
Yeah.
Because he's already,
that's
right here, the phrasing looks like he's just equating with them. But it's practically like replacing, if you will, of the positions. Ephraim and Manasseh shall be mine, as Reuben and Simeon are. So there's an equating of all of a sudden. He's just, first off, is bringing them to an equality there. But he picked those two. Why did he pick those two? Why not say the other brothers?
I see where you're... Interesting.
But
these are the guys that dropped the ball.
Yes, they did. In leadership.
Yeah.
And they did, which will be revealed later in the thing. But your offspring that have been born after them shall be yours. They shall be called by the names of their brothers and their inheritance. Now as for me, when I came from Padan, Rachel died in my sorrow in the land of Canaan on the journey, when there was still some distance to go to Ephrat. And I buried her there on the way to Ephrat. That is Bethlehem. Interestingly. When Israel saw Joseph's sons, he said, who are these? And Joseph said, they are my sons.
Now listen, watch how Joseph, how this is written between Jacob and Joseph. Because he's referencing seeing them. But yet he can't really see.
Yeah.
It's a blindness in part.
It is, because he's talking specifically about them.
Just watch how it interplays and goes back and forth.
When Israel saw Joseph's son, he said he saw him, Joseph's sons, he said, who are these? Joseph said to his father, they are my sons, whom God has given me here. So he said, bring them to me, please, that I may bless them. Now the eyes of Israel were so dim of age that he could not see. Then Joseph brought them close to him, and he kissed them and embraced them. And Israel said to Joseph, I never expected to see your face, and behold, God has let me see your children as well. I like that statement. Then Joseph took them from his knees and bowed with his face to the ground. And Joseph took them both, Ephraim on his right hand toward Israel's left, and Manasseh on his left hand toward Israel's right. And he brought them close. So he's lining them up so that he's going to get the right hand blessing on Manasseh and Ephraim there. Okay? But when Israel stretched out his arms, he crossed over. But Israel stretched out his right hand and laid it on Ephraim, who was the younger, and the left hand on Manasseh's head, crossing his hands, although Manasseh was the firstborn. He blessed Joseph. He blessed Joseph and said, "The God before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked, the God who has been my shepherd all my life to this day." I like that line too. that a nice phrase. The God has been my shepherd all.
It's comforting.
The angel who has redeemed me from all evil, bless the lads, and may my name live on in them, and the names of my fathers Abraham and Isaac, and may they grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth. But when Joseph saw that his father laid right hand on Ephraim's head, he displeased him. He said, wait, what are you doing? Grasped his father's hand to remove it and to put it over. But Joseph said to his father, "Not so, father. Put this on the firstborn. Place the right hand on his head." But his father refused and said, "Nope. I know.
I know what I'm doing.
I know, my son, I know. He also shall become a people, a nation, and he shall be great. However, his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his descendants shall become a multitude of nations." And he blessed them that day, saying, "By you Israel pronounced blessings, saying, may God make you like Ephraim and Manasseh." That blessing right there is repeated every week by Orthodox Jews over their sons at Shabbat, on Shabbat. Okay, during Sabbath, that would be that blessing on there. So it's a fascinating blessing on there. It has great depth of meaning for certain, but I think there's huge more depth of meaning. The realization of who these guys are. And the representation on the wholeness of God's kingdom and operation, this stuff is quite significant. Because I've often, as you read through, you see constantly Ephraim being mentioned over and 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 over again through the prophets and all sorts of different things. Now, there was all sorts of waywardness and various things that transpire.
A lot of waywardness.
Yeah, huge amount. But this origin of these guys end up being far more important than realization, because of their origins being they practically are Gentiles that have been adopted into Israel.
Let me run this by you. I'm going to try something on for size again.
Okay.
Could we say that Manasseh and Ephraim are the original Samaritans?
No, I mean,
because the Samaritans are half Jew and half Assyrian, right? That's where they come from.
Yeah,
so it's a mixed blood.
Sure.
In that way, and they're Gentiles. Mm-hmm. So could we make this? Could we equate that?
Well,
I'm genuinely asking.
Well, I would. I mean, just that mere fact or whatever that it is. But there's a perpetualness of people coming and going within things. But I mean, just equating them with the Samaritans.
Because Jesus utilizes the Samaritan to demonstrate what a neighbor is.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Could that have a reference?
I don't know.
If we
or the very region in which geographically whatever is occurring, it would.
Because the Jewish people snubbed the Samaritans big time.
Mm-hmm.
But my thought is maybe they snubbed the Samaritans without looking in the mirror, realizing that Ephraim and Manasseh are two of the greatest tribes within their tribal structure, and they are, for all intent and purpose, if you want to call them Samaritans. Maybe they forgot to look in the mirror. I don't know.
It's a thought. Yeah, a thought there. I don't know. Thus, Ephraim was put before Manasseh. Okay. And Israel said, "Behold, I am about to die, but God will be with you and bring you back to the land of your fathers. And I will give you one portion more than your brothers, which I took from the hand of the Amorite with the sword and my bow." Interesting little thing there. But this blessing here upon them has a huge significance, because we have this bringing in, with the midst of all these brothers or whatever, these two sons of Joseph.
Yeah.
And that's always been a curiosity to me of in reading the thing. But as you start meditating more on that and who their origins and how the whole patterns and things go, it's like you can really see embedded here.
They received the spirit of adoption, and they were grafted in.
They're adopted.
They're grafted into the tree of Abraham as sons.
Yeah.
And yet, for all intents and purposes, they are otherwise would be considered Gentile.
Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't
That's
that
what it is.
interesting?
Yeah, I know. That's the thing. It's like, wow, okay.
So, do you see yourself in Ephraim and Manasseh? I think I'm starting to see myself in Ephraim and Manasseh.
I think so.
I'm going to show you why.
Okay.
In this regard, because
All right.
I found this fascinating.
Okay.
We read through things all the time, and we read over things all the time, and
Easily.
our interests. Last year something else was, and this year something else is here. But this year, check this out.
Okay.
In verse 19.
19 of...
And it's the last word before verse 20.
Okay.
He says, I know, my son, I know, he also shall become a people, and he also shall be great. Yep. So he's going to be of great significance. Speaking of Manasseh, he says, but nevertheless, his younger brother Ephraim shall be greater than he, and his offspring shall become this is it, the multitude of nations, plural.
Yes.
Now, when you go back to the Abrahamic covenant, and not in 15, but in 17,
Okay.
where his name is actually changed from Abram to Abraham, the promise that's given to Abraham is, you will be the father of many nations. Now, generally we associate, Abraham's second wife, Keturah. In her name, Keturah?
Yeah.
Okay. And the sons that she has.
Oh, as being the
additional nations. And then it goes on to say, and I think it's in chapter 25, pertaining to Keturah, I think, if my memory serves right, which doesn't happen a lot. But but then it goes on, and the concubines, the sons of the concubines of Abraham, and he sent all of them eastward, you see. So we generally think, well, maybe this is where the father of many nations is. Plus we have
which is legitimate.
Ishmael also, the firstborn.
Yeah, lots of nations there.
He's of Egypt. He's derivative of Egypt, but he's not. Egypt already exists, but he fathers another nation. So we think, well, okay, all the nations have been handled now. But that's not what Jacob says. He says, through you, Ephraim, you will be, if you will, the line for which this blessing, because Isaac is the son of promise. God made the promise, to Abraham that everything would come through Isaac. So that means the sons of Keturah are not of that promise.
No.
Isn't that interesting? No. And so here we have the promise continued, and it's to Ephraim through Isaac, the son of promise, to fulfill the entire promise of the Abrahamic covenant.
Right.
Now this ties in directly back to Romans chapter 11, verse 25, because this would be part of the fullness of the Gentiles.
Right.
Isn't that through the line of promise, which is pre-law, pre-Sinai?
Very pre, because we're just before it.
Yeah, I just wanted to,
Now, interestingly, then, because you have the promised one, ultimately, who comes from a different tribe entirely here.
Judah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But that's because that's where it leads into next with regard to.
Let's do that.
The listing out of the sons and the blessing, because Jacob is finishing up. and he's blessing. But he starts off with Joseph
Yes,
and his sons. All right. Then Jacob summoned his sons and assemble yourself. So that's, he starts with Joseph, which was his favorite.
Yeah.
Why? Because firstborn of Rachel. His true love. Then Jacob summoned his sons and said, assemble yourselves that I may tell you what shall befall you in the days to come. Gather together and hear, O sons of Jacob, and listen to Israel your father. Oh, it is, isn't it? Yes, I know. It says, may befall you in the days to come. That's interesting. It says, gather together, sons of Jacob. So, and he's talking to his sons here, and he's talking to himself.
Or is the sons even there yet?
And listen to Israel your father. Yeah, right there. He summoned them or whatever. It's like he says, listen to your father. Just addressing him right now. Reuben, you are my firstborn, which that right there should have been the main dude.
That's right.
That is the case. But there is always possibility of disobedience and failure and forfeiture. Is it that he's totally cut out of things? No. But there is possibilities, where you can miss it.
Yes.
And you will get less.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, we're going to discover a massive forfeiture when they come out of Egypt. Because the first generation refused to go in. They refused to take possession. The issue really was they refused to believe God. In other words, they acted in disobedience.
Yep.
And hence,
they said, take the land. They didn't.
Forfeiture.
Yep.
Done.
And they did.
And there was no...
They were cared for.
Yeah.
They were cared for, for their lives or whatever, but they died up. But they did not receive God's fullness of blessing.
And they died in their forfeiture of the inheritance of the promised land. Think about that. But yet they're still sons and daughters.
Oh, yeah. Reuben, you're my firstborn. My might and beginning of my strength, preeminent in dignity and preeminent in power. Those are really, really great words said to somebody.
It reminds me of the words that are spoken of pertaining to Lucifer before he fell. Great words spoken. It's like you had such a great start. What a disappointment.
Verse 4, uncontrolled as water, you shall not have preeminence. Because you went up to your father's bed and defiled it, he went up to my couch. He basically, he allowed the lust of the flesh to take over in his decisions of things. And that right there has great meaning to folks, especially even to this day.
Okay.
Think of our society right now. Casual sex is just rampant. It's not even considered. It's just like, oh yeah, that's just what people do with things. It doesn't negate the actual consequences of that.
No.
Because it's prevalent. There's always, oh, well, everybody does that. No.
Yeah.
No, it's not what God calls one to do. Even all the way here, whatever. Now, you see, the thing is, though, you look at certain stuff, and you're like, okay, that particular thing that occurred here, he was with his dad's wife?
Concubine.
I know, which then you're going like, well, wait a minute. He's got multiple wives.
Yes, they
See,
did.
Right there, that ends up being like, to me, I always trip on that. It's like, well, wait a second.
Now, here's the thing.
You know what I mean?
On top of that, which is bad enough, I think there was even more in play than just the sexual aspect of things. The lust and the desire of the flesh, if you will. I think this was an attempt at usurping the authority of the house and taking possession of the authority of the house and elevating himself
very possible
above Jacob.
Very possible.
Which is what Lucifer wanted to do with God.
That's interesting. Yeah.
You see?
Very interesting thought. I hadn't thought of it that way.
It just occurred to me while we were sitting here.
Yeah. That there could be in there. So, goes on to Simeon and Levi, who are brothers, right? I think they're almost like They weren't twins, were they?
No.
I don't think they were. But they always hung together.
Mm-hmm.
Me and Levi were always together. Their swords are implements of violence. Let my soul not enter into their counsel. Let not my glory be united with their assembly, because in their anger they slew men, and in their self-will they lamed oxen. Mm-hmm. Now that's reflecting back with their sister, right?
Yeah.
You know, when they wiped out the entire
town.
They were the leading things. But interestingly enough, what is these two guys with regard to the portion, ultimately in the breakdown of the land?
Yeah.
They didn't. Right?
They didn't.
They didn't have a portion of the land. They were never allocated.
Well, Levi was not.
Levi wasn't on there, but Simeon was.
But
he ended up having a scatteredness, whatever. They had like cities, they had little towns. They never were, never had like an own particular spot. They were kind of like.
That's right.
But Levi ended up, because of other actions and response to things, ended up having a very high calling.
They have a high calling. They don't get to inherit land themselves.
Yeah.
They are allowed to own houses. Some people think they aren't allowed to own houses, but they don't have a territory.
Right.
Their territory is in everybody else's territory. Mm-hmm. They're to be, if you will, salt and light to all the other tribes.
It's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, there's a mixed bag of things that transpires through this.
That just occurred to me just now, too.
Kind of interesting there. So, cursed be their anger, for it's fierce, and their wrath, for it is cruel. I will disperse them in Jacob. I'll disperse them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel. And sure enough, that's what they did. They got scattered throughout, right?
Yes.
Which is fascinating. But also the fact, though, that I find it interesting, though, that God utilizes Levi then as the priesthood.
Well, yeah, they were zealous for God then. You know,
I think part of the element of
Moses. We'll be getting to that.
Right. But I just find it interesting at the origins of the words that Jacob is putting forward here of Israel. Just the blessing.
But remember what God says over Levi when we get to Exodus. Mm-hmm. We'll get there.
Oh yeah,
and we'll refer back to this portion if we remember to do so.
Yes.
We got to remember to do so. Moving on.
But I just find it fascinating, though, ultimately where they're going, the description of stuff on here, because you think of these guys, whatever, and the calling, but they're the ones that are called to draw not close to the Lord, serving directly. Yeah. Maybe they're ones that are. Here's a little a little midrash here on things. This would be all right. You got somebody that's passionately, that has a lot of anger, has just a lot of things on there. You got to draw close to the Lord
and stay there.
You got to stay there, whatever, if you're going to make it, because otherwise you're going to be a wild thing.
That's an interesting thought.
So he's going to bring him close to a thing. So okay, Judah. Your brothers shall praise you. Of course, his name, is praise. Your hand shall be on the neck of your enemies. Your father's son shall bow down to you. Judah is the lion's whelp. From the prey, my son, you have gone up. He couches, he lies down as a lion, and as a lion, who dares rouse him up. The scepter shall not depart from Judah. Here we have even the prophetic word right there, that there's going to be kingship in here.
Yes.
Nor the ruler's staff from between his feet until Shiloh comes.
And there's prophecy number 2.
Oh, yeah. And to him shall be the obedience of the peoples. And he ties his foal to the vine and his donkey's colt to the choice vine. He washes his garments in wine. Interesting. How often do you wash your clothes in wine, garments in wine? And his robes in the blood of grapes.
His
eyes are
we can look back at the cross and we can, and it's easy to understand it, but
it's not easy.
Well, you know what I'm saying. You can comprehend what's being said, but at the time that it's being said, at the time that Jacob is making these enunciations, does he possibly fathom? Is God giving him some kind of unique insight, how is he coming to terms with what he's saying?
The phrases, the very words that he's saying.
And if you're Judah hearing it, how do you come to terms with what you're hearing?
Do you walk out and goes, what the heck is that old guy talking about? Or was it like having some great significance at the time? That's a good question there. That's fascinating. Because I've always read through these things in that way and looking at them says, what were they hearing? What was it meaning to them, Now we have the advantage of a lot of different things.
Hindsight.
Of looking
at
a lot.
They didn't have any of that.
No, not at all. So yeah, of hearing these words of what's coming forth, I don't know how the response was, because there's nothing listed of hearing their response.
Yeah.
They're just listening.
Yeah.
Zebulun shall dwell at the seashore, and he shall be a haven for ships, and his flank shall be towards Sidon. Issachar is a strong donkey. Donkey. Lying down between the sheepfolds. Now, that's significant, though. If you think about it, Issachar, though, being called a donkey, that looks like it would be pretty negative.
Not necessarily.
But no, not this thing. Think about it. The donkey itself, whatever, is like the critical mode of transportation, if you will.
Well, and also carries the load.
Right, is the load bearer.
Yeah. And carries all the supplies and all of this kind of stuff.
So that was a compliment to Issachar here.
Yeah.
No. And when he saw that a resting place was good and that the land was pleasant, he bowed his shoulder to bear burdens. Just like that. And he became a slave at forced labor. Dan shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan shall be a serpent in the way, a horned snake in the path that bites the horse's heels so that the rider falls backward. That doesn't sound too promising there.
No.
If you think about it, when you think of this thing, whatever, this is Jacob blessing his sons.
Yeah.
Now, I would think, using that term blessing, you would usually equate that as being something positive. Right? Yeah. I mean, that would be the natural thing. You would think so on there. But in this context of things, whatever, this is an element that I'm endeavoring to learn. That because of the sovereignty of God and His control in all regards of things, as our heart is submitted unto Him, whatever God brings in our way is a blessing. It may not be the best looking thing at the time.
Well, Joseph had to deal with that, didn't he?
Right. But it always ends up being good. It ends up being a blessing in the positive way, even though at the time it may not be.
Now, he has one good thing going for him, in that he's going to be a judge.
Oh, yeah.
And in fact, they did end up being a judge. And we know the guy's name, Samson.
Shimshon, yes.
And so that was good. But when you lay in parallel and we never get to that in the portion pertaining in Deuteronomy because of the feast days. But when you read the prophecies that Moses gives over the tribes and lay it parallel here, when it comes to Dan, neither one's good.
Well, at least
at
least in the laying out of what's being said there. Yet the what I'm saying with regard to that is it revealing elements that have negative things on there, but in God's control of all things, whatever.
Yeah. Now, incidentally, we know that he survives. The tribe of Dan survives into the millennium because they're the very first to inherit in Ezekiel. Yeah. At the furthest northern point from the temple, but they're the first to inherit. So we know that they survive, but in Revelation pertaining to the 12 tribes, Dan's not named among them.
No, he's not.
Not at all. Yeah. As a matter of fact, Ephraim is only referred to under cloak because it's Manasseh and Joseph. You have to assume that Ephraim is the subfolder, if you will, of Joseph.
Which, as we continue here, as for Gad, raiders shall raid him, but he shall raid at their heels. As for Asher, his food shall be rich, and he shall yield royal dainties, as it's translated here. Funny. Naphtali is a doe let loose. He gives beautiful words. Now, each one of these things would be a great thing to expand upon, but the time is slipping here. 22, Joseph is a fruitful bow by a spring, its branches run over a wall. The archers bitterly attacked him and shot at him and harassed him, but his bow remained firm and his arms were agile from the hand of the mighty one of Jacob. From there is the shepherd, the stone of Israel. From the God of your father who helps you, and by the Almighty who blesses you with blessings of heaven above, blessings of the deep that lies beneath, blessings of the breast and of the womb. Blessings of your father have surpassed the blessings of my ancestors, up to the utmost bound of everlasting hills. May they be on the head of Joseph, and on the crown of the head of the one distinguished among his brothers. I mean, after that, here's poor Benjamin at the end getting the... Benjamin's a ravenous wolf. In the morning he devours the prey, and in the evening he divides the spoil. Boom. Joseph gets the...
Yes.
You know?
And you wonder why that is. I haven't given a lot of thought to it because I've been thinking about other things, but I think for next year, I would like to think about that.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm going to need the Lord's help to remind
big time.
me to think about
Oh, yeah.
that and what is being inferred.
We have now these words are spoken forth by Jacob, and all of which have just a fascinating opportunity to study any one of those.
Yes.
To go down. There's such great depth of things that could be uncovered on here, and some of which you'll come across. It'll be asking the question, what is this? You know, you read it first off, like, what? So I just find it intriguing, though, to look at that. And, of course, we lead right then into the actual death of Israel.
And we don't have time to get into that, but we do have...